Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum assalam. How are you?
I'm good, alhamdulillah. How are you?
I'm good.
Haven't
Long
seen you in a
time.
while. I know.
I know, right?
All right.
Um,
So I guess we should start.
yeah.
The reason we wanted to do this is because just to introduce ourselves on a cup of home and find out who is behind cup of home. So I think that you were going to start the questions, right? We had a few questions ready for each other.
Yeah.
And oh, I was gonna ask first, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So how did we first meet?
So I know I heard about you for a really long time from my friend, your cousin. And it was always said that, oh, you got to meet her. You guys are so similar. But then I think when we officially met was we were in the same class together. And one day, the class was locked, and so we were standing outside in a hallway, and someone else was talking to me about homeschooling, and I'm like, oh, I read this book called Well Trained Mind, and I try to follow it, and all of a sudden, I remember you turned around, and you're like, wait, I follow Well Trained Mind, and I'm like, oh my God, really? You're the first person I met who also follows Well Trained Mind,
Right.
and that's probably how our conversation started, and we really were like, whoa, uh, you know, I don't know
Yeah,
if
I
you
think
remember
so.
that day.
I remember that day, and remember sitting in class and just thinking, "Oh my God, I can't believe." I know that my cousin had told me, "Oh, you're so much like Aisha. You should like talk to Aisha, or you coordinate with
Yeah.
Aisha, like so many different things." And I was like, "Oh, I don't know. It just didn't seem like that was a common."
Same
But yeah,
feels, same
yeah.
feels. Yeah, yeah.
But I was like, I can't believe she read Well Trained Mind because that's how I started off homeschooling. And actually, at that time, I didn't know any local Muslims that were homeschooling with that book. So,
And
um,
that's something I always found interesting was that, like I didn't know any homeschoolers in our area either. Then when I found you basically, and then remember when we started a co-op, we're like, we're gonna start a co-op and let's just see who shows up, right? It was
exactly.
literally,
Yeah.
we did it blindly. And
Right.
then we found so many people.
Yeah.
Like
Mashallah. We did.
all of
We
a
did.
sudden I'm like, where were these people before, And it was
Exactly.
amazing.
Yeah. Alhamdulillah. A lot of people came through when it came out, and it didn't seem like because we're in New Jersey, and there's not a lot of. I mean, homeschool is not as big as other states, like in the South and California and other places. But yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Good memories.
Yeah, right. So, what do you think makes us good friends?
That's pretty easy. I think we we just think a lot alike. Like that's how we met, and that's kind of what made us click. And we're just. I think it's just a lot of times it's like people are really compatible because they're so different. I think it's just us. We're so much the same. Like we know what the other person's gonna say because we're already saying it. We're thinking it, and so I
Yeah.
kind of already know what you're gonna think because I'm thinking the exact same thing. And it's so many times, like at least once a month, something happens to us. I don't think other people know that, but literally, like we'll be thinking the exact same thing, or we'll be thinking of calling each other, or we have the exact same idea for a project, or we use the same exact pen or whatever it is, it's always something that's like exactly the same. And it's just so subhanAllah, like such a coincidence, right? So that I think
Yeah.
definitely brings us closer together.
It's always been weird, I think. I've
Yeah,
never
it's
met
really,
someone who, and I think we always say, like, whenever we're typing something, it's like you will type the same exact thing and we'll just be like, oh, same brain.
yeah, exactly. It's subhanAllah. I
Yeah.
mean, like Allah created us different, but really a lot the same.
Yeah. And that's the other thing. Usually, like, same things like, you repel each other, opposites attract. But for us, it's just been always so different.
Yeah, I think it also makes it easier because mashallah, you have 4 kids and I have 4 kids, and we've been meeting since, you started homeschooling, and since actually I started, I think homeschooling that same year or the year before. But anyway,
I think you started a
um,
year before I officially, yeah.
okay. So then, basically, like for us, because we're thinking the same thing, like, you know, I'm like, okay, it's
Yeah.
getting crazy. It's too crazy. It's time to go. And you're probably thinking the same thing.
Yeah.
It's always the same type of thing. Like it's pretty easy to meet and collaborate and work when,
Yeah. The
we're on the same
other thing,
wavelength.
I don't know if you know this, but I feel like I always benefit more from our friendship.
Oh,
specifically because you have older kids, and I feel like I
right.
always benefit from you already going through
Oh,
everything with
Jazaka,
those
that's
kids.
so sweet.
I don't know if I ever told you this, and especially because you have four and I have four, and I always compare. I'm like, okay, her first did this. I think my first will do this. Or,
That's so
like
sweet.
you tell me like one of your kids went through this and this is how you handle it. And I like take a mental note of it. Like, oh, okay,
Oh,
when my kid goes through it, because they probably will. And one thing you do know though is like our firsts are pretty similar. Our seconds are pretty similar.
yeah, that's true.
Our thirds are similar,
Yes,
and
yes,
our
that's
fourths
true.
are similar in personality and the way they
100%.
learn and just how they are.
Right.
So I think I'm getting the better end of
And
the
I
bargain
think,
here. So
no, I definitely don't think that because I feel like you have a little bit of more energy. You're energetic about, especially like a couple home and the co-op. I feel like you really pushed me along for all of those things because I kind of was more into homeschooling farther down a little bit. My kids were older, things were a little bit more intense. And so I feel like you really helped me with that because I don't know if I would have been able, like, we would be able to, we have so much information, we have so much we want to get out there, but I don't really know if it would have been possible without you, because you have a lot of that energy
thanks.
that pushes
Hopefully
things
it's
along.
contagious.
Hope so, yeah. So what else is funny is that ironically, when we finally had our husbands meet, they both actually, I just remember, they both actually went to the exact same med school
Yes.
and
Oh
they
my
really
God.
clicked too. It was just like often like, two wives will get, the moms can get along and the husbands don't. It's not always like you find the exact, like, type of
Yeah.
chemistry between two moms and two dads. But it was also ironic and they really hit it off. Like,
Yes.
we were
And they're
done the
also
first
same
day we
brain.
met. Yeah, they were same brain too. And they don't like, they happily would like, meet up or just hang
Yeah.
out.
Do you remember the first time? I think we finally had them meet maybe a year into us knowing each other.
Yeah.
And it was very like, oh God, why are we doing this? There was nobody else. But you're right, they clicked right away.
Yeah, and I remember the kids were kind of done because it was late and they wanted to go and we all just wanted to like then we wanted the
Yeah.
night like okay, we're done, the kids are going crazy and they were just kept talking and talking and talking. So
Yeah, our kids were so young then too. That was like, what, 5 years ago almost.
yeah, a
Yeah, it was
long
like
time
five
ago.
years ago. Yeah, it was a long time.
Subhanallah. Okay, so um let me did you want to ask me another question or should I ask you?
It's up to you.
Either
I
way.
think, and so just so you know, everyone, that's kind of how Cup of Home started because we would just get all these questions and we're like, you
Right.
know what? Let's just blog about it because it'd be so much easier, because even now, especially with quarantine, I'm getting asked the same questions over and over and over again. And I actually love talking homeschooling and parenting and I love answering those questions, but we figured, what a great way to, get information across to people.
Yeah, and
You
actually
can ask me something if you want.
sure. And the reason we are doing this Q&A, I mean, it's not Q&A, it's like a convo. It's Q&A with each other, so it's a convo, but it's because there's so much background. Like there's so much we don't really talk about. Like we have a circle of friends, a couple circle of friends that overlap, but we don't always like talk about couple home. We don't always talk about homeschooling. There's just so much going on in homeschooling and behind the scenes that it's just nice to get it out there because as you said, Aisha, we at this time of year, end of June, July, August, every year we get so many questions. People want to meet,
Yeah.
they want to know how to homeschool and what we do and how we did it. So we're trying to just, get that out there. Okay, so I would ask you, um, let's see. I would ask you, okay, yeah, how about your homeschooling style? Because we talked about well-trained mind, and that's a specific approach. And we both kind of started off with well-trained mind. And we do refer, I mean, I think I still refer people to well-trained mind if they ask me, because it's very comprehensive. It has everything in it, but it can also be daunting. It can be a lot for somebody that might get overwhelmed with a lot of information. So for you, what do you think? How has your homeschooling personality changed? What does it look like? Because you did start off with that. Do you think you stuck with it or you changed?
So I feel like, and I'm sure we've all read this before, where like I always start off with well-trained mind and classical education. As the year like goes on, you move to like Charlotte Mason, and then as the year moves on, you end up ending the school year as like an unschooler. And I think that is pretty much my style. I'm still very like academic based. I I think that's very important to me and my husband when we make the plan for our kids. But so we are academic heavy in a sense, but I am more lax than I was my first year. Like if I could go back to my first year, I actually wouldn't want to go back to my first year
Yeah,
because,
no.
the first year of homeschooling is like, oh, I have to do this, this. You try to recreate school, and that's just not how homeschooling is.
Right.
It's child led, it's parent interest. There's so much more going on. So I think at this point, my style is kind of letting them, love to learn, which has been always kind of my thing. I want them to love to learn. I want them to learn on their own. And, it's amazing, like seeing my eldest, for example, starting homeschooling in kindergarten to where she is now. She's going to be going into fifth grade now. Like I see the benefits of what we've kind of been doing,
Hmm.
making her more of an independent learner, things like that. So, I don't know if that answers the question because my
Yeah,
style is just kind of
definitely does.
everywhere at this point. And I think that it changes with years. It changes with your kid. It changes with you. It changes with pandemics,
Yeah,
with how the
exactly.
world is changing. You can like totally upend a whole curriculum just because, of something going on in the world. So, yeah.
Exactly. I do agree with you about especially the changing with the pandemic. And I know a lot of people felt like, okay, now, homeschoolers are happy or homeschoolers have it easy, but I don't think the homeschoolers had it easy because one of the secrets that may not be such a secret is that though people homeschool, they're not really home that much, right? So we're always going to some activity, going down to the
Yes.
farm, going down to a class, to a sport. And so it was hard on homeschoolers just as much as, people that do go to school. I mean, a brick and mortar school because and it did change our homeschooling style. And what got done, I feel like things actually didn't get done because it just changes the home dynamic. When everybody's home, no matter what was happening before, it changes. So yeah,
That's true. I was telling people like during quarantine, we were actually doing the home part of homeschooling because we're never home.
right,
Um,
exactly. Yeah, and then there really wasn't something for the kids to look forward to leave. I mean, we did try.
yeah.
Everybody was baking and doing activities at home, but it didn't. I don't think it was enough because the kids are always used to going to sports. They're always, going somewhere to a class to seeing their friends. They also really missed their friends and seeing their own, circle. But yeah, it's kind of a okay. So
So your kids range from high school to elementary, mashallah, right?
right.
How do you manage like all these different levels?
Well, honestly, I'd say it was a little bit more challenging when they were younger. Just like you said, the first year of homeschooling, we started when my oldest was in fifth grade. I had a fifth grader, a fourth grader, a first grader, and a newborn that year. So I feel like that was more challenging because you still had to sit with the kids and help them. But high schoolers, honestly, they get really independent by the time they're in high school. Mashallah, my oldest, he really does everything on his own, and I feel like he has been for a while. So it's not always like you might see somebody with four kids, but they're not always helping and sitting and teaching them. You end up being more of a support for high schooler, like making sure what they need to eat is cooked, being there to drive them, just little things like if they need some supplies, it's there because they don't have a license yet, but you just need to make sure you're supporting them well. And that does take some energy. So it's not like you're sitting there and it's everything is academic like a teacher. There's different ways that, high schoolers need support, or even finding them a tutor online or finding them the appropriate classes because realistically, most parents aren't well versed in every high school subject. And so you definitely are going to need somebody from outside. And even if you teach every single high school class and you have other children, you probably won't have the time or just the human ability to teach every high school
Yeah.
class as well as, do everything else. One of the things I noticed that people maybe they don't realize is that actually homeschoolers, they really don't do everything. They outsource stuff. You might outsource a cleaning lady, you might outsource getting food cooked, you might outsource getting your laundry done. There are, I'm sure, people that do a lot, but there's and still in like a full curriculum. I think that's how, it gets done with all different
That's
ages.
true, especially like that's something I always have to remind myself because not every school teaches everything either. You know, if you go to a different school, your kid will learn different subjects, different things, different topics. So even in our homeschool, we're not going to learn everything that they're learning in school, but we will learn different things, and that
Right,
just varies by family.
right. And so the younger kids obviously need more support, more structure, more pointing in the right direction of what to do. But one of the things I read throughout the years, and one of the things that I've actually implemented myself, and it really benefits the whole family, the whole unit, is that you give the youngest kids the attention in the morning. Like if you're going to sit with them for 15 minutes or sit with them an hour, sit with them forever, however long, they want to, and you can. You have to meet both of those criteria that as long as they want to and you have that time to sit with them, then, maybe an hour reading books or whatever you're teaching them. Whatever curriculum you have. You can get it out of the way in an hour, even maybe two. And then, they're kind of going to be happy to go out and play or go upstairs or downstairs or wherever and keep themselves occupied for a long time. Okay, so how about you? Now, I guess I would ask, what is your hopes for your children? Because you had mentioned that you guys like a lot of academia. So what are your hopes for your children with that?
Whew, okay.
I know that's a tough one because your
um,
kids are still pretty young. Like they're not
one
even middle
one thing
school.
I think homeschooling allows me to do, which I hope we're successful in, is to find their niche. Find not just what they're passionate about, but what they're good at. I don't think everyone is good at everything, and I think
Right.
everyone has something specific that they excel in.
Hmm.
And I hope that I can figure that out or help them figure out what they're really, really good at.
Inshallah, yeah.
And then take that and then go with it, like we can build on it. And I think that's a difficult thing to do, is to
Yeah.
pinpoint that. And I hope we can do that and they can be successful in it so they can be more happier in what they're doing.
Yeah, and I feel like that actually changes
Yeah.
over time. Like children want to do
Yeah.
something when they get older and then they change. But yeah, I think that with your classical background that you're giving them a lot of, I know you had mentioned what you're going to be doing this year with your oldest, and I'm really impressed. I think that really helps them, have a good background and have a good framework to give them an understanding of where they want to go in the world,
Yes.
because the
And
more
you know
they
what?
know,
That's why I've always been attracted to a classical education because I feel like it exposes them to so many things. And when
exactly.
you're exposed, then you can kind of figure out where you're leaning towards and what interests you more.
Yeah, exactly. I completely agree with that. The more they
Yeah.
know and the more they read about or even watch,
Exactly. Yeah.
they can kind of figure out who they are and what really interests them. And hopefully it's something that, makes them prosperous.
Yeah.
Um,
Do you want me to ask you something or it's been
sure.
like 20 minutes? I
Oh,
don't know if
has
you
it
want to.
really? Okay. It's up
Time
to
goes
you.
by. It
I
goes by
know, I
fast.
know. So we had decided that we're going to keep it kind of short, right?
Yeah. Do you
Just
just want
keep
to
it.
end it with like each of us giving like a piece of wisdom to someone who's just getting started?
Sure, that's a great idea. You can go ahead first.
Okay, thanks. Thank you. Okay, so something I think like one piece of wisdom I'd give someone who's just started to get who's just starting to get a homeschool is to take it slow and not to rush into anything. I think the best thing to do is start with, if you're starting with academics, is to start with one subject for 1 week, and then add your another subject the second week, add another subject the third week, and just don't go crazy, and just don't throw it all at them at once. I guess that would be
Okay.
my one piece of advice, is to transition slowly into it.
Yeah, I completely agree. That's exactly the same tip I was thinking
Of
of.
course,
Because
of
Julie,
course.
Julie Braybetter, she mentions the one thing rule. I think in a podcast she called it the one thing rule, if I'm not mistaken. And she basically, just talked about adding one thing at a time. You know,
Yeah.
so for instance, like I have a first grader, and if I'm going to work on her reading, I might just like start in July or even August or even September. I want to, with just the reading. 5 minutes for me. I just want to add to your tip if I can. is that I like
Sure.
to have a timer and keep it really short, because sometimes we get hung up on this idea that we have to have this huge curriculum. It's going to take 7 to 8 hours to implement. So I just want to add that it should be just, something simple, like add 5 minutes a day for each child. A middle schooler definitely could do 10 minutes of anything academic, even in the summer. I know a lot of people, they do try to keep up with a little bit of work, not necessarily homeschoolers, like everybody I'm talking about, just to avoid the summer slide. I know a lot of parents do work with their children, or give them 10, 15, 20 minutes of something to do in the summer. And of course, it's going to keep them fresh. If they're going to pick up the pencil and write anything, it's going to, keep their brains fresher than somebody who doesn't do anything. But yeah, just to add a little bit every day. And so if you want to start homeschooling, you could just start with 5 minutes a day and maybe add 5 minutes every week. And I guess now we're in July, and by the end of August, you could have like almost 40 minutes, even for a first grader. Of course, for younger kids, you would want to give them a break and things like that, not just go 40 minutes straight. But, in 40 minutes for a first grader, you can get a lot of schoolwork done. So, yeah, just
That's
add
actually a
maybe
good point.
a little
Because I
bit
think
every day, every week.
sometimes you think like a school day is like 6 to 7 hours, and so we need to do 6 to 7 hours at home, and that's not the case at all. Because when it's one-on-one, you can get 6 to 7 hours done in like 1 hour. So I think
Yeah,
that's the other thing.
that's exactly correct. I mean, I know that when I started homeschooling, I had left. I was actually my last year. I was the vice principal of a school. It's like a community faith-based school, and I actually thought that the kids really did need to be like at the table at their desk for like 6 to 7 hours a day with like a lunch break. But yeah, they really don't. They can get a lot of work done in a little bit of time, and there's no reason to prolong, that. And they should be learning things outside the house, in the
Yeah.
backyard, not at a table with a book. So
Gardening.
gardening,
We're all
yeah.
about the
I saw
gardening
your
right now,
gardening
so
post on Instagram. That was awesome. I love it. If you guys
yeah.
didn't check it out, go see it. It's so cute. I love it.
It's been such a great tool for us. So alhamdulillah, we're happy for our
Yeah,
garden.
I really love it because it was ironic. I just want to add that because you said you let each kid pick a different vegetable. And
Yeah.
I was telling my kids to go water the garden, which they were used to be happy to do, but now I have two high schoolers and a middle schooler, and I they were like, why do we? One of them was like, why do we even plant tomatoes? I don't want to plant tomatoes. You want tomatoes? And so I was like, oh man, I wish I had done what Aisha did, like have each kid pick a vegetable and give them ownership over it. So
Yeah,
maybe next
and
year,
you know
inshallah.
what? I always want to tell people, I'm like, we grew watermelon on a porch.
That's
And because
awesome.
one of my kids wanted to do watermelon, and it works. Like you don't need like a plot of land or any land. You just
Yeah,
need a pot, you need soil, and you could do wonders with that. So
that's awesome.
yeah, we could probably talk for another like hour
Yeah,
for
I know. I was
sure.
just thinking that. Okay,
Yeah.
so we'll do this again,
Yes.
inshallah.
Okay.
All right,
Thanks for
everybody.
joining.
Okay, everybody. Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam.